Hello, Bill.
Good morning, Matt.
Welcome to the DMZ, everybody.
Thursday, September 25th. So we got about a week before government shuts down. Have you made provisions? You have a bunker you go to? Do you have canned food, bottled water?
The good thing is that this is not a debt limit. It's a government shutdown, Bill. We've had many of these. We've had threats of government shutdowns. We've lived through government shutdowns. And yes, Social Security checks still go out. Sometimes trash doesn't get picked up. Sometimes you can't go to the national park. But I think we will survive this. But Bill, I think it's pretty much inevitable at this point. I mean, it's not inevitable, but it's highly likely that we will have a government shutdown. And I suspect in a different political environment, this would be the hot topic. Everyone would be talking about it, but there's just so much other stuff. But maybe it's time that we do turn our attention to this.
Do you feel like? I grant that Donald Trump putting the First Amendment in the shredder, you could argue is a bigger deal. So if you want to talk about Jimmy Kimmel first, I would understand that.
Well, let's talk about this shutdown because
Okay.
I've had multiple shows about Jimmy Kimmel. I've talked to Tom LoBianco, our friend. I've talked to Charlie Sykes about Jimmy Kimmel. But no one's really been talking about this shutdown. So we might as well go ahead and lean into this and lead with this. And so let's just start with the beginning. Bill, it seems to me this is inevitable, and I'll tell you why. Because A, I think Donald Trump wants a shutdown. Partly because the idea of furloughing a whole bunch of government workers isn't a problem. In fact, it's sort of like Hans Gruber in Die Hard, when that scene when he's like, they're going to call in the FBI, and he's like, well, that's exactly what we want them to do. They're going along with the plan. But I also think Democrats want this in the sense that they really Democrats have no other mechanism to demonstrate their outrage at what's going on. And they tried before to be pragmatic. Back in March, Chuck Schumer backed down from a shutdown, and I think he had many plausible reasons to do so. We don't have to rehash them here, but it wasn't a crazy hypothesis that Democrats would have lost that shutdown and that it would have been unwise. But now, here we are 6 months later. I think Schumer has to flex. He has to do this. I think the base demands it. So it's probably going to happen, but am I wrong about that?
No, well, I think you're right that Schumer doesn't have the political latitude to make concessions, even if he was inclined to right now.
And Republicans are saying, "Here's my offer: nothing." They want a
well,
clean. They want a clean CR, a clean continuing resolution with just a little, I guess, a little more money to security for lawmakers, but
mhm.
basically continue the funding levels. So it's kind of hard for Democrats to argue with that. And yet they're saying, like, why should we give Trump a blank check to continue running roughshod over the Constitution?
Well, Schumer is handling this in a way that is not the way I would do it. Um, but Trump is also handling this in a stupid way that might allow Democrats to escape. So, my argument was that you go back to the March negotiation where Schumer did stand down and let the bill go through. And part of the argument was, if we have a shutdown, they're going to use this as an excuse to go full Doge and lay off more people. So it's what they want anyway. And they'll blame us for it. So, we really need to just keep the government open. And again, I've always argued that the party that makes an unrelated demand to keep the government open always loses and is unable to realize that demand.
Mm-hmm.
You don't gain leverage by having a temper tantrum and shutting down the government. Now, what's changed between March and September is that Republicans didn't adhere to the deal that was agreed to in March because they did rescissions. They pulled back money from that bill without Democratic support, once through a partisan vote, which exploited a loophole in the law, so it was at least legal but bad faith. And then Trump did something arbitrarily through executive power, which is arguably illegal and unconstitutional, but he did it, and it hasn't been adjudicated yet. So Democrats have every right to say, you're not good faith negotiating partners. So a clean CR is not clean if you can go back on it and make cuts after the vote.
Bill, I agree with that. They have every right. But I think that nobody in America knows what rescissions are, and no one's going to care. The American public doesn't care if Democrats feel like Trump isn't negotiating with them in good faith and isn't honoring his commitments. They don't care about that any more than they care about democracy in the abstract.
Well, I mean,
what they do care about is kitchen table issues, and that is why Democrats are now talking about, well, we're also going to look at the Democrats' plan to keep the government open doesn't address the things that you've just addressed. What it does is it says we're going to go try to fund Obamacare, and we're going to pull back money that Republicans took out of Medicaid, and we're going to restore that.
Well, that's probably why Schumer's doing what he is doing. He accepts your premise that what I'm talking about is too procedural in Washington, and healthcare is popular, and so we're on firmer ground fighting for people's healthcare. And again, I
agree, except this breaks the Bill Scher rule.
Correct.
Which is repeat the Bill Scher rule. I don't want to mischaracterize it.
The party making the unrelated demand loses the shutdown war, loses public opinion. Even if you have a popular position that you're fighting for, you don't draw attention to that position. You draw attention to the fact that you shut down the government and hurt people to try to gain leverage, and then you end up losing leverage. You lose public opinion. You see you're not going to get what you want, and so you cave. So that's why I reject the strategy. And I think the argument that can be made with my approach is you can say, I don't want a shutdown, but you guys won't have a good faith negotiation with me, and you've said on the record you don't even want a bipartisan appropriations process. So you're in charge. You figure it out. So it's not my fault if it happens. You have the votes to do it. You might have to
they don't, Bill.
Filibuster, but you can do it.
That's the problem. They don't actually have the votes. Republicans literally could not pass this on a party line vote.
So the Republican response would be, gee, I really like to keep the government open, but I love this filibuster too much. No one's going to... Now they're in the procedural weeds, and no one's going to buy that.
But doesn't this give Republicans then an invitation to nuke the filibuster? I mean, isn't that wouldn't that be a bad thing?
Well, you know me. I like the filibuster. I'm not someone making this case because I secretly want a three-dimensional chess play to get rid of the filibuster. I like the filibuster, but I don't think it is tenable for Democrats to be played for the sucker over and over again. They can't keep voting for bills where Republicans don't live up to what's in the bill. They will shatter. I mean, the base would have every reason to say, you suck. I'm not going to show up for you. A lot of the you fight arguments is kind of BS. This would be legit if they vote for bills that Republicans backstab them on. So I think they have every right to say, I don't want to if you want to work with me to keep the government open, then you have to put provisions in the bill that ensure that they stick. If
this is why
this is a problem.
This is why I think the shutdown is inevitable, which is Trump wants the shutdown, and Democrats cannot in good conscience vote to fund Trump anymore based on all that we've discussed already. And Trump wants to shut down, but both sides in a weird sort of way want the shutdown, at least secretly. I mean, and cynically, I think they may both have a point. So we probably get the shutdown, but Bill, I don't see how this ends well for Democrats. Even if I buy your premise
Well,
That
let's explore that.
okay.
Okay. So what Schumer is doing is essentially what Ezra Klein has recommended. I'm not saying like he's just like listed. Ezra Klein told him what to do, but they're in sync. Um, Klein said, this is not normal. You can't be abetting Trump. He's doing too many awful things. They should quote. This was a column in the New York Times. They should quote, pick a small set of policies and stick to that. They would have to choose those policies wisely. They would have to hold the line even when it got tough. So that's the basic. And so Schumer's doing that by saying healthcare, healthcare, healthcare. There's the Obamacare enhanced subsidies that are timed to expire, and so people will lose money unless they're extended. And so we're going to say you got to extend these, or we're not going to vote for this. That's what Schumer's doing now. The point from before, which was Schumer argued in March, well, if we did this, they're just going to go full Doge, and we don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
Ezra Klein argued, this is a quote from Ezra Klein, the scale of Doge's assault on the government has shrunk. Trump and Elon Musk went through a messy and public breakup. But the real reason it didn't continue, I suspect, is that it's Trump's appointees running these agencies now. They don't want their own agencies wrecked. They don't want to be blamed for the failures that might result. They need staff. Now, I said in my response, that's crazy talk. I'm not quoting myself here.
Yeah.
But we've already seen them destroy the CDC, destroy FEMA. Like, these are not people that care about maintaining government staff levels. They're more than happy to shift the blame whenever possible. And so you're seeing it right now. Trump's response to Chuck Schumer's, sort of political consultant logical demand, we need to sustain people's healthcare subsidies. Trump's response is, oh, that's what you want? I'm going to permanently fire government workers. What do you say about that?
Politico's out with the story right now. This could be spin, right? I mean, this could be a negotiating strategy, but I'm quoting from the story. The White House Budget Office is instructing federal agencies to prepare reduction in force plans for mass firings during a possible government shutdown, specifically targeting employees who work for programs that are not legally required to continue.
So this is at the same time proof that you're not going to get Trump to concede to your demand. He's just going to escalate the war.
Mm-hmm.
So in that respect, I think the Chuck Schumer path is a dead end. However, number two, the risk for Schumer is that Democrats get blamed for causing pain. But here's Trump saying, oh, I'll cause the pain myself. I'll increase the pain because I really don't care. And I don't care about public approval. And I'm just an authoritarian. You can't have a strategy when your negotiating partner is not operating in the same form of government as you. You are functioning as if you're in a democratic government, and Trump is functioning as if he is an authoritarian. It's a total mismatch. So Trump's just going to say, I'm just going to do stuff. I'm just going to wreak havoc. I'm going to inflict pain. And I don't care what kind of democratic pressures this might put upon me. I don't care if my approval goes to 25%. You're not getting rid of me. So it doesn't matter to me. So it makes it impossible, I think, to get for a negotiated solution. But it's an escape route for Schumer, because Schumer could say, I don't want to shut down. I don't want to see people get fired. Don't put this on me. He's actively inflicting that pain.
It's an escape route for Schumer to allow the shutdown to begin, which I think it will. But let's say the shutdown goes on and on and on. I would argue that I just think Democrats are damned if they do, damned if they don't.
Which they should scurry back to my plan. This is a chance to say, hey, you know what? Hey, I tried here. I tried to at least help people with their health care. You guys don't want to help. You guys want to inflict more pain. We out.
Wait,
on you.
Wait,
now.
I just want to be clear. So you're saying the best strategy for Democrats is to allow the government to be shut down and then to back off and open it back up at some point and to claim we tried. We tried.
Negotiated solution where we keep the government open and make sure people don't lose health care. You don't want to talk. You want to inflict more pain. You have the majorities. You are not so precious about norms and rules. So you have a way to keep this government open on your own. And if you don't do it, that's on you.
Bill, basically, Democrats in that scenario are holding the government hostage unless they get their demands, which may,
they're not. They are not. They are saying flat out, we are not forcing this government to close. You Republicans have the power to keep it open. It might require
the only power they have is,
but you can do it. You do not need us. You've said you don't want us, so good luck.
So you are encouraging and inviting Republicans to nuke the filibuster.
I mean, I am. I don't say that in glee. I like the filibuster, but what good is the filibuster is when you pass legislation on a bipartisan basis that one party abrogates the deal afterwards. It's worthless piece of paper.
Is it better for America and the Democrats if the filibuster, imagine the scenario, this plays out. Republicans nuke the filibuster. Now they control the presidency. They control the House, and they control the Senate with a simple majority, let's say. Is that a better
situation now? We are already in that. They are already ignoring any respect for minority power in our constitutional system of government. Trump is already forcing people to, literally using the FCC to force people off the air, having the vice president tell their minions, get people fired from their jobs to exercise their First Amendment rights. They're already abducting people off of streets. There are so many horrible things that are happening that violate the basic constitutional structure of this government. I can't tell Democrats, as much as I think the filibuster is a good thing, I can't tell them, put everything else aside to protect that, because you're getting reamed in every other respect right now.
I get it. So the message is we are slipping into something other than a liberal democracy. So pull out all the stops. It is flashing red light time. We are basically going on strike. You guys do what you want to do. We will not be complicit in funding this government that is basically attacking democracy and doing all the things you just described. And consequences be damned. And at the very least, people will know that we stood on our principles. We were willing to fight. And what happens, happens. But we're washing our hands of this at this point.
And bring it to the ballot box in 2026. I mean, the only things that are keeping our rickety constitutional structure together is that we still have a wisp of an independent judiciary, and we still have free and fair elections. So Democrats can say, look, we tried. There are things that we want to do for America. We are willing to negotiate with people who we have vehement disagreements with, so we can keep your health care, keep the government open. They're not willing to negotiate in good faith with us. They have time and time again trampled on basic constitutional rights and broken constitutional checks and balances. So look, they are in charge right now, and they're going to do these things. And the voters, you'll have a chance to adjudicate whether you think they were good or bad 1 year from now. But this is on them. If they don't want to keep the government open right now, that is their problem to fix. If they want to change their tune and talk to us with provisions that would ensure that our deals stick, we're here.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's on you.
On one hand, Bill, there's part of this I like. I think that if you act like things are normal, if you're a Democrat in Congress and you treat the Republicans and Trump like a normal party that you're going to negotiate with, you are normalizing something that's abnormal, right? You're playing into their hands by acting as if, like literally Chuck Schumer, I want to say literally because I'm paraphrasing here, but Chuck Schumer has essentially called Trump a fascist, and then he's like, "But we want to meet with him and negotiate." Like, how do you can't square those two things? You can't think.
It's very hard to, yes.
Right. But on the other hand, Bill, I'm not convinced. Like if now see, there's a double standard. Trump and Republicans get to do crazy, horrible things, but when Democrats do it, like if Democrats did 1/10 of the things that Republicans do, all of a sudden now they're equal. Both people get to say, well, both sides are radical.
Right. Right.
Both sides are radical. Both sides are crazy. So I might as well go with the Republicans since I'm a white Christian. I don't know. So isn't there? This is my team. I mean, they're my tribe, right? I mean, both sides are crazy. Both sides are radical. Like I'm not convinced. I think what you're saying, it has more. There's like a moral consistency to it. Maybe the times demand it, but I'm not convinced it works. I just think they're damned if they do, damned if they don't.
Well, so they have to do. They need some strategy. What's the least worst option in all these choices? I mean, the value of what I'm offering is that Nate Silver had a response to me in the New York Times the other day because he sort of gave me a hat tip. You didn't say that my argument was bad. But
where had you made this argument, on Twitter or
what? I wrote about it at the Washington Monthly a few times.
Recently,
yeah.
Okay.
Basically, since July, I've written about it, I think 3 times so far. The most recent was my response to Ezra Klein. Nate Silver, gave it a shout out in a New York Times column. Said it was sort of well articulated. I don't have it in front of me. I recall he said he didn't think Democrats had the message discipline to sustain it. And then he shifted to essentially a different version of the Ezra Klein argument, and the Schumer argument, except he didn't think healthcare was the best ground to stand on. He thought it was tariffs, because tariffs are affecting everybody right now, and that had more punch. And so my response to that would be, tariffs have the same flaw as the healthcare one. You're still taking whatever. I think it's a popular position to say I want to reduce the tariffs, but you're not taking an unrelated issue into a shutdown thing. And I think any of those things, healthcare, tariffs, whatever, that's the one that requires more message discipline. That's the one that requires more of an argument and explanation what it is you're trying to fight for. I think it's very simple to say, we can't negotiate with people who don't stick to the deals that we agreed to. And therefore, You're in charge, you figure it out. I mean, I don't think it's that hard to repeat that over and over again. I mean, in a 30-minute interview, you might get into more detail about it, but the top line of it's pretty simple.
Yeah, you make a compelling argument. Do you? And look, again, I think this is going to happen. Trump, as I noted, canceled his meeting with Schumer and the House Democratic leader. The Republican House of Representatives has adjourned until October 1st, which is, I think, the funding deadline.
Yeah.
Which means there's not going to be a lot of time to save it if they even wanted to, assuming that they stick to that.
He could call him back in if he really needed to.
They could do it. They could. But let me ask you this, Chuck. So I think Chuck Schumer, this will happen because Chuck Schumer has to flex. There was a poll in March that showed AOC beating him by double digits in a U.S. Senate race in New York. This is a guy who's under fire. He needs to show toughness. The base demands it for all the reasons we've just described. But is he the man to do this, Bill? Is he a wartime consigliere? Because I don't think he is. I don't think Donald Trump versus Chuck Schumer in a messaging war over who gets blamed. I don't like Democrats' chances if those are the two messengers.
I mean, neither one is a popular figure. I mean, again, Trump is not someone who has this great command of the public. He's underwater the whole time. He sneaks into office through the perks of the Electoral College. And again, Trump's mission right now is, I will find a way to make the shutdown worse and hurt more people. I don't think that's great messaging. Chuck Schumer, for all of his imperfections, he's been through this before. It's not like this is not his first battle. I have certain strategic disagreements with him.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think he lacks fortitude.
Though it's an interesting thing, which is like, on one hand, the older we get, the wiser and more experienced we become, but also sometimes we lose a little toughness. and a little and the energy to fight. Now, it hasn't happened to Donald Trump, but I do think it might have happened to Chuck Schumer. Like I'm just not sure he's. I don't know who the Democratic leader would be, and typically I think it doesn't really matter who these functionaries are. Harry Reid didn't look like a great charismatic leader. I mean, it's usually the top of the ticket that matters ultimately in terms of a party's brand. But if this is going to be a protracted battle, that Democrats are literally drawing a line in the sand and saying, we are not going to write any more blank checks. We are not going to play along with a game that is rigged against us and the American people. If they're going to stick to this, can Chuck Schumer sustain this sort of battle?
Well, I mean,
I don't know.
I don't think it's a question of Chuck Schumer's charisma. Chuck Schumer is operating on. I mean, I don't think Schumer lacks toughness. That's not my critique of Schumer. I think he is operating on political rules that political rules that his party adheres to and the other party doesn't. So if Donald Trump's numbers sink because of this, it doesn't matter to Donald Trump. If Democratic numbers sink as a result of this, he will not be able to hold his team together. They will weaken at the sight of numbers tanking. And this has happened before. The Democrats very briefly instigated a shutdown over Dreamers in the first Donald Trump term. And at the first sight of weakening in the poll numbers, Schumer yanked that back and went back to the table. So it's not just Chuck Schumer that has weakness in this regard. It's the entire party, but also for good reason. If their numbers tank, then they don't have the leverage to win the concession because that Donald Trump, even having good numbers might not make Trump concede. Having bad numbers certainly won't make Trump concede. So once you see that, the strategy it doesn't work anymore. I mean, so that's my problem. It's not much of Schumer's inner strength. It's the premise of the entire strategy.
I just feel like this is like that in the movie Austin Powers, the scene where there's this security guard and it looks like he's about to be run over by a steamroller and he's like sort of there shooting. And then you notice that the steamroller's still like 100 feet away from him. And eventually he does get rolled over. Like I can see this, this is going to happen. You can see it coming a mile away. It seems inevitable. And it also seems to me, I don't want to say inevitable, but highly likely that Democrats will lose. That they're going to lose either because they will cave or because they will be outmaneuvered and they will be blamed for this and they will actually lose in terms of public support. And people may even look back at this moment as, well, the Democrats asked for it. How stupid could they be? Of course they blew the midterms, Maybe the best scenario is that they back down. I just don't see how this ends well for Democrats. Maybe there's something I'm missing.
That's why if you take yourself off the table, this isn't our problem to fix. Then
this is like the Homer Simpson slogan. Can't let somebody else do it. Wasn't that his slogan when he ran for?
Look, once you say flat out public, I mean, you talk about getting into procedural weeds won't necessarily be embraced by the public. They won't understand it. Fine. But there's still things called reporters. There's still stories they have to write. And so if Democrats say accurately, we are not going to negotiate anymore, Republicans can keep the government open by themselves, may require changing the filibuster rules, but they have the power to do that, and it is on them. Those are all facts. Mm-hmm. And so when you say it to a reporter, the reporter is going to repeat those facts. And once a reporter repeats those facts, and all the discussion about the story is, okay, Republicans, what are you going to do about it? Yeah. Schumer just said correctly that you have the power to do this, so why won't you? That's the story then. The pressure was shifted to them.
I think Donald Trump would love to be able to blame Democrats for nuking the filibuster. He wanted Mitch McConnell to do that,
Sure. I mean, again,
10 years ago.
that's the other thing. That if they don't do it, how is that not Republicans' fault? Trump has wanted to nuke the filibuster this whole time. So if you have a fight between Trump and Thune over the filibuster, then that's all. That's a Republican circular firing squad story. Or they just do it and the problem is solved and the government is open, there's no more filibuster, and the Democrats' role in it is a complete afterthought, and we go on to other things.
Yeah. Well, it would be liberating because then Democrats could become a truly oppositional party in a much more radical way than we have seen. And I don't think it would give them any more influence. They would have less influence, but it would be liberating from a branding standpoint. You would it's kind of the way that like you see these people who are on TV, like cable news pundits, and they're wearing their neckties. And then you free us to come on podcasts and we seem a little cooler and fresher and this milieu. Like, I think that it would, in a way, liberate them. And by the way, they need to be cool again. It used to be that Democrats, progressives, liberals sort of cornered the market on being cool, partly because they controlled the means of production as it pertained to video production and TVs and movies. Donald Trump changed that a little bit, but I've noticed, Bill, that Jimmy Kimmel, I think, has positioned himself as now kind of the rebel, and Trump is the man. Trump is the establishment. And so if Democrats can get back, even if you're the little guy or the outsider, if they can get back to being kind of the underdog, the cool, irreverent rebel, maybe with a cause in this case, that's something that at least they would have. Right now, they went into this like schoolmarm, finger wagging, hall monitor mode for the last decade or so.
I mean, Schumer is never going to be the most compelling face of the party. I mean, that's just not what his function is, and it shouldn't be put upon him. I think Jeffries has a lot more potential. He's caught having to be a leader and dealing with herding cats and keeping the caucus together, and sort of limits his ability just to be full-throated and exciting. But some people, so he has to function more like a Schumer character, because he is a congressional leader, and has to.
When you get to function more, I mean, Newt Gingrich had more panache.
How long did he last?
You know what, though? He brought Republicans back from the wilderness after being out of power for 40 years, and they held power for decades after he left, right? With the whole Hastert, Boehner, Paul Ryan thing. So I give Newt credit for being a revolutionary leader who was able to play his role in that. And I think Democrats need their version of that. And you know what? In a way, once you burn the ships and you are freed from the responsibility of being a responsible governing partner, I do think that could help Democrats get their mojo back.
I mean, it allows you to focus on, what is it that you want to do if you were put into power. There is, I believe, there are responsibilities that people in government need to live up to. So I don't jump to the argument that, hey, I'm in the minority, it's not my problem. We have a constitutional system of checks and balances, and some elements of that, go beyond what's literally in the Constitution and are in, rules and laws. But the whole thing is designed to avoid tyranny of the majority. It's designed so even if you're in some form of minority, partisan majority, geographic minority, religious minority, ethnic minority, you still have a say in the government. You're not totally kicked to the curb, because in that form of democracy, people like that say, why am I even in this thing? I don't even have a say. I'm going to take my marbles and go home. I'm going to try some kind of revolution. I'm going to secede or whatever, So having minority voices be part of things is essential for it all to hold together. So the fact that, generally speaking, it takes majority and minority to keep a government open and negotiate to that end is a healthy thing. We're in a situation where the majority party doesn't want to do that. So the Democrats have to function on that reality.
Yeah. And if Republicans own everything, then they get blamed for everything. And so then I guess if you're a Democrat, you just have to hope that Trump's policies result in bad things. Now, the last time that back in March when we flirted with the government shutdown, you noted that part of the reason that Schumer backed down was fear that Doge would actually run amok. But there was another reason, Bill, and that's because Trump had implemented these so-called reciprocal tariffs, and everyone thought they were going to crash the economy. The problem is Trump pumped the brakes before they did, but I think Democrats didn't want to interfere.
Still a lot of tariffs out there.
Still a lot of tariffs out there, but they not as egregious or as onerous as they were at that point back in March. And I think Democrats were afraid that if they shut down the government and then there was a downturn, they would get blamed for it.
Yep.
They would get blamed for actually something the tariffs caused, and they would be stepping on the news story. So that is not there now. That's not really a valid excuse.
Well, I mean, the economy's not great. I mean, there's still a lot of uncertainty in the air. There's still elevated prices. I just saw an article in the Washington Post about the housing market is frozen. People feel like they can't sell their homes. So it kind of like gums up the whole system where people sort of move out and new people move in. Rates are still interest rates are still on the high side. You bought a house and refinanced at a low interest rate, so you don't necessarily want to move to a new place with a higher interest rate. So there's lots of things gumming up the works. So even if it's not full blown recession and panic, it's not good, and there's fear that it's going to get less good. So that's still out there, I think, and a shutdown probably wouldn't help. But again, it can be made very plainly that it's not the Democrats' fault, since Republicans have the power to do it, so long as Democrats don't meddle by adding demands that are not going to get met.
But they are.
They are right now. I'm saying get out. Get out of that strategy. Trump's giving you an escape hatch. Get out now.
Wow. I have to be honest with you, Bill. I did not think this conversation would go where it went. I did not think this would be riveting. I thought it would be somewhat perfunctory. But this turned out being the show, as far as I'm concerned. I'm still processing some of the things that you've said, involving, nuking the filibuster. So, I think we've got a good show here, but do you have anything else that you wanted to mention before we get to writing?
Yeah, I gotta write a column today, so it's probably going to be.
I think you've basically outlined the column, and I need to get. My only advice is don't pull your punches. Be bold. I think you've got a hell of a thesis, and it may be controversial, but that's good business, man.
Appreciate that. Anything you want to plug? Well, since we're here.
I have got to go write a column too, so read me in the LA Times, read Bill in Washington Monthly, and we'll see you back here hopefully next week in the DMZ.
Take care.